Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Matchbook Horse Racing Podcast, where we are QIPCO British Champions Day through and through. All six and only those six on the Matchbook Podcast previewed this weekend, but a good six they are. There's plenty of runners. Whether or not there's an out-and-out superstar turning up, well, there probably is, I think it's fair to say. Although we've got to see what the ground does. We don't know as yet what they're doing about the inner or the outer course. I think the forecast would indicate on the round course it's likely to be the inner course, which will leave 3 races on the straight course and then 3 on the inner course, which should be better ground. But we'll see, and hopefully that doesn't scare anyone off. Donn McClean won't be scared off. He's with us, and Charlie Poste is with us again. A reminder to like and subscribe, please. It makes it far easier for you to watch or listen to every podcast that goes up, and that's across all sports. For example, Premier League's back this weekend. Thank goodness. Without further ado, we're not going to dwell on the rugby because we've had a big debrief about that, Don. Had a big old debrief about that. And but I thought I'd mention it, Don. I thought I'd mention
it. Good idea. It was, we need to mention these things, Tom. No point in shying away.
We've got to mention it.
I think good call not to get into it in too much depth.
Quite right. The producer, who is Irish, has just pointed out the rugby isn't in the running order. No, it's not. Quite right. And it definitely.
I thought the French were robbed, though.
The poor French. The poor French. I know. But that's all right, because there'll be plenty of French content on the podcast when Steve Jones is back with his French syndicate. So that's all right. England are going to get smashed this weekend. So there we are. We move on. So we're going to go in race card order. The Champions Long Distance Cup, first of all. Right. Prices as follows. Kyprios sits atop the betting. And on old form, you might have thought that he's going to be odds on, but he's not, because of course he's on a bit of a comeback trail, having been beaten last time at odds on. So he's currently in there at 2.6. Trushan is 2.3. Trushan is in there at 3.0. Coltrane is there at 8.5. 11.0 for Sweet William, and bigger prices thereafter. We're a bit split on this, and we're very Britain and Ireland split. So maybe Charlie and I can make the case for Trushan first of all. Charlie, I really think that Kyprios will win, but I just think on what we've seen of late, I feel like the prices are just a little bit too much between them. Like 3.0 Trushan interests me more, and the ground, if anything, was a bit too quick for him last time. It certainly would have been come the Sunday, officially good to soft, but it wasn't. It was, the time was only a second slow, I think. So I think we can say that was good ground. He will get his conditions, and I guess it's more that he's danced this dance so many times before. So, he's looking to win it 4 years on the bounce. Kyprios, he ran a great race last time, and if he's back to his best, he'll be too good. But at the prices, Charlie, I feel safer with Trushan at 3.0.
Yeah, I completely agree, Tom. As in, I don't think it's a case of that I'm necessarily against Kyprios. I just feel I was against Trushan at Doncaster, and I thought what he did was unbelievable. To do it so wrong and still win like he did, and then he backed that up at Longchamp where he blitzed them. And as you say, he's unbelievably good in this race. We know how well it suits him already. We know he's going to relish conditions, and I just felt like he comes into this with less question marks over him than Kyprios. Like you say, he ran fine last time back from a long break, but I just feel more confident that Trushan will definitely pitch up in this, because he has done for so long, and he comes into the back of it in irresistible form. So a marginal call, but price related, and Trushan for me.
Don.
Yeah, I just agree with a lot of what you said, Tom. I think Kyprios is at his best. Kyprios will win. I think I think Kyprios' best is better than Trushan's best, and he's the horse that he was last year. He was the outstanding stayer of last season. He kept on beating Stradivarius. He had Trushan behind him at Goodwood, and his Prix de Cadran, he won the Cadran by 20 lengths. A flat race, which is quite incredible. And then he had a setback, and it wasn't just a setback. Like, listen to Aidan O'Brien talking about him, like he could have died. That's how far, like, that they didn't think they'd ever get him back. And before the St. Leger, Aidan was at pains to point out he wasn't going to be close to his best. He was kind of saying, more or less, this is his kind of starting point in the season, and then they're looking ahead to later in the season to races like the long distance cup at Ascot. And it's probable that the Irish United brought him forward quite a lot. And as you said, Tom, it was still a really good run. Like Eldar Alderhoff is I think that's probably his trip, 1.6 miles, more so even than 2 miles, and definitely more than 2.5. And Kyprios was with him until inside the final furlong. So it was a really good run. He's had a lovely break since then, about 6 weeks off. Coming here, you can be sure Aidan O'Brien has had this race in mind since then, that this is where he's going. He played up in the stalls, remember, in the Queen's Vase at Ascot as a 3-year-old, but he put that behind him, obviously, when he won the Gold Cup last year. So we know that Ascot's fine. We know that soft ground is fine as well. His Cadran win was on soft ground. So I just think he's got an awful lot in his favour. I think he's a better horse at his best than Trushan. And as Charlie was saying, what Trushan did at Doncaster was quite incredible. I mean, he was the first horse beaten, really, the way he ran his race. He just expended way too much energy, and he still had enough in reserve to go and beat Sweet William. But I just think Kyprios is such an outstanding stare, and he's still relatively lightly raced for a 5-year-old. So I think he's got everything in his favour.
Simon says, "Where's the brains of Matchbook?" No offence, chaps. Unbelievable. To which our producer Dan said, "I'm producing," but apparently he's talking about Steve, which is absolutely Simon is clearly actually Steve. That's the only explanation for this. So hi, Steve. Welcome along. The champion sprint is up next. We've got 2 shouts for Trushan there, 1 for Kyprios, but I think it's fair to say they're not sort of hard and fast opinions as in against Kyprios or against Trushan and for the other one necessarily. The 6 furlong champion sprint has Kinross atop the betting, which is unsurprising at 2.8. The Dream is 8.0. Millstream is 9.0, as is Sandrine. And then we do get into the bigger prices. I think we've got 3 different ones here. I'll come straight back to you, Don.
Yeah, look, I kind of was looking at, look, Kinross is the right favourite, that's for sure. And I was kind of thinking last year he was more 7 furlongs than 6, but he proved that he could operate over 6 furlongs as well on soft ground, which he's going to have. When the rain started to come, I was looking at Vadream. I thought maybe she would be a wee bit underrated, and she was. But then the rains came and all the soft ground horses got backed, and she was backed quite a lot. Actually, she's an awful lot shorter now than she was a couple of days ago. So yeah, I just thought Sandrine was interesting. I think she's coming into the race in good form. I know Kinross has beaten her a couple of times, but she beat him in the Lennox Stakes last year, albeit on better ground. But she goes well on soft ground. She's probably more known better as a 7 furlong horse than a 6 furlong horse. But I just, the way she won the Park Stakes the last day on soft ground, admittedly over 7 furlongs, that was really impressive. Like, she quickened up very smartly in the far side and beat Audience and Spycatcher and beat them impressively. And she won the Albany as well at Royal Ascot as a juvenile on soft ground, on heavy ground. She's been beaten twice at Ascot, but those 2 defeats were both on fast ground, good to firm ground. The last time she ran on soft or heavy ground at Ascot, she won the Albany. So that was obviously that's in her favour. I know it's going back. She was only a juvenile then, obviously, but it's 2 years ago, and I think Ascot form, as we know, it's very important going back to Ascot. So she is dropping down a furlong and trip, but that will be mitigated by the ground, I think. And I think she comes into the race in really good form. Like her Park Stakes win the last day was up there with probably her best performances. And I think she's a wee bit overpriced.
Adam from Galway, welcome along. Thanks for getting in touch. Simon says the Dream ran a blinder last time out and wants it really soft. And I'm exactly the same as you here, that I sort of set out, Don, thinking, I wonder what price the Dream is, and then thought, oh God, she's short enough. I mean, I can see it, but I think, she's markedly less talented than Kinross. I mean, she's officially rated £13 lower. She's getting 3, but I guess for that reason, I thought it was difficult to look away from the top of the betting. He won it last year. He arrives here in good form, probably a bit too far back last time. Ground is ideal. I think he's well drawn in the middle. I often feel on the straight course here, which is a slightly narrowed straight course on Champions Day, and when the ground gets testing, I feel like it tends to develop middle to far side, whereas it tends to be a bit more stand side at the Royal Meeting. So anyway, they might end up going over that way. That's where I'm looking, the Britannia anyway. But yeah, I thought Kinross will be a horse who I probably, put in with a few others. Whether or not I have an out and out win bet, I'm not certain, but I thought Kinross was just about a fair enough price, to be honest. Charlie.
Yeah, I mean, look, he's completely rock solid, Kinross. He there for all to see, and he was very good in this race last year. Completely agree with the comments. Reeve the dream, as in the price is gone. I came down with Rohan. He's had an in and out sort of season, but he got back on track last time at Ascot, winning a handicap of 102. I suppose on ratings he has a good bit to find with Kinross, but he's very good at Ascot. I think he's 5 from 9 or something like that at the track. I think Ryan is 3 from 6 on him, Ryan Moore, and he was 4th in this race last year. And so even on that sort of run, he doesn't have a whole heap to find. I think he's 13.0. So I just thought he was attractive win and place. Like I say, getting back on track last time, back at his favourite course. Ryan, he's the world's best jockey anyway, and he's very good on this horse. Made him interesting to me because I just didn't want to back Kinross at 2.5 or something like that. So I was looking for something longer, and I just think this horse is surefire to run his race. He's also won on heavy before.
Yeah, the only thing I'll add to Kinross is I sort of have in my mind that you can get a few favourite boilovers in this race. So, and I think that's often because the straight course can get pretty chewed up. They race on it 3 times, and the round course has a good few recent winning favourites. But looking at the QE2, the last favourite to win was Roaring Lion back in 2018, Minding and Solo before that. But that's only 3 in the last 10 years. And this race, I remember saying it last year, I wouldn't back Kinross because only one favourite in the last 10 years has won it. But then Kinross did win it last year at 4.0 favourite. But you definitely can get a bit of a boil over in this race. So I guess I'm sort of talking myself out of Kinross now, but I am going to come back to that and put up as a long shot another horse in this race. So that's for the Matchbook Zero long shot. So I'll come back to that. So 3 different horses: Kinross, Rohan, Sandrine. Anything to add on the sprint, chaps? On we roll. Good. So the 225 now is the fillies and mares over 1.5 miles. Donn's best bet lines up here. Free Wind, incidentally, is 4.33. Jackie O is 5.0. Time Lock is 6.5. Bigger prices the rest. Donn McClean, your best bet.
Yeah, it's Jackie O, Tom. Just think she's a really improved filly this season. Well, it's only her only season racing, but since the start of the season, and the ground is key. The ground is key to her. Like, she started off, and she got the better of a duel with her stable companion Red Riding Hood in the first run of the season. Then she was beaten on soft ground at Navan in the Salsable Stakes, I think it was. But she was just a wee bit keen that day. She came back. She was very impressive at Goran Park and winning a Group 3 race at the end of July on soft ground. But then her next 2 runs, strangely, like her last 2 runs are nearly the runs that make the case for her, even though they were both on better ground. So she was second behind Lumiere Rock in the Blanford Stakes. That was a big run. And then last time in the Opera, she was only just beaten by Blue Rose Sen, and that's a massive run. She was beaten the neck by her on fast ground. We know the ground was fast at Longshot on Arc Weekend. So I was all against her last time because the ground was just too quick for her. But back now on easier ground. She's by Galileo out of Jacqueline Quest, who was first past the post in the 1,000 guineas. Special duty was promoted in front of her. But so she's a really well-bred filly, and like the fact that she didn't race last year, she's just made big strides this season as a 3-year-old, and 3-year-old fillies have won the last 6 renewals of this, which I thought was quite an interesting stat. And Aidan O'Brien's been responsible for 2 of them. So I think she's got, and even on ratings, she's rated the same as Free Wind. Free Wind probably had a hard enough race last time in the Arc, and that's less than 3 weeks ago. So yeah, I just think that she's still an improving filly, and she loved the ground.
Viper says Jackie O loves a soft ground, and good points put forward. Sai, welcome along. You've said agree with the comments regarding Badream. This was on the QE2. No, it's not. It's on the sprint. Just keeping it simple. Kinross to win. Don, I'll just pick up on Jackie O. I think she was nigh on going to be my best bet until I saw you'd put her in there. I quite like horses that are going to improve for the step up in trip at the back end of their 3-year-old campaign, and that's exactly what she's going to do, I think. Magical fits that sort of bill, although did she run in the Arc perhaps before she won this? But yes, that was her first go at the distance. But she I thought had a similar sort of profile, And the other thing I don't get is that, like, Free Winder's favourite just seems really. I just don't. What am I missing? I don't understand. She was unsuited by heavy going at Goodwood. She probably hated the ground in the Arc last time, which was officially good to soft, but it was 4 seconds quick the time. I mean, it was definitely good to firm, but she handled good to firm at York. I know it was the Arc, but yeah, I'm going to come back to her later on when talking about the lays. But I thought, I think the main danger could be above the curb in first time cheek pieces, because she won on soft ground at the Curragh last year, and I don't, she hasn't quite backed that up, but I thought she ran pretty well at Goodwood when just touched off by Al Hussein. So she's interesting. Like, there's loads in here. So I'm against Free Wind and pretty strong Jackie O. Charlie.
Yeah, again, completely on board with the comments out Free Wind. That I didn't really get that at all, and I think this is quite an interesting race outside the, away from the favourite. And I came down with Rue Boissonade, again, another filly that will be very suited by heavy ground. She's 1-from-1 on it. She beat Wise Girl in April, who was then 4th in the French Oaks. She then won a Group 2 at Longchamp after that, beating a horse of William Haggis's. She was then 4th in the Vermeil after a break, and then was 4th in the Prix Royal, where the race didn't really pan out, and she drops back 2 furlongs in trip. But again, I'm not sure the ground would have suited her at all in that race. And yeah, I just feel like, she's 12.0. I think she's a bit bigger than that actually when I look through this race. And I just think this track, heavy ground, it's sort of massively in her favour, and I very much respect the connections as well. So yeah, Rue Boissonade winning place for me.
Yeah, she's 13.0, Charlie. So I'm sure you're happy enough with that. Moving on to
Sorry,
the
just one thing to make before we move on. Term of Endearment is an interesting filly in there of Henry de Bromhead's. They've supplemented her to the race. Like, she's got about 10 or 12 pounds to find on ratings, but she really loves soft ground. Like, she won the Give Thanks Stakes the last day at Cork. She stayed on really strongly and won really impressively. And that was probably, it was heavy. It was heavy. I think they abandoned that meeting later on. That might have been the last race that they ran at that meeting. That's how soft the ground was. So it might not be quite that soft, especially if they move to the inside track. But it's a mile and a half. She stays well. She loved the ground. They paid the money to put her into it. So just think she's worth noting at a bit of a price.
Yeah, she is a fair enough price as well. Term of Endearment, who's 15.0, Tom Marquand and Henry de Bromhead. And just to come back to that point I was making about which races have decent records of winning favourites, 3 of the last 4 have been favourites that have won that. Although you had to go back a little way before that. And I guess it's no surprise that you've got not a bad winning record favourites rise in the opener, because it's a small size field. Anyway, we're back on the straight course now for the QE2. And Paddington is 2.37. Tahira is 5.0. Nashwa is 6.5. Confirmed for this really after Inspiral dodges the meeting. Big Rock is 8.0. Chaldean 13.0. Bigger prices thereafter. Charlie, I'll start with you here. Take it away, sir. And in fact, you and Donn agree.
Yeah, Paddington for me in this. I think, yeah, very strong about him, to be fair. I mean, he'd obviously had a perfect season up to getting beat by Mostadaf in the Juddmonte, but he didn't really lose much in defeat in that. He's only beat a length and a quarter, and he'd had a very, very busy schedule. I like the fact he's been freshened up. He goes on slow ground. I think he's a 2-time winner already this season, including the Sussex Stakes on that sort of surface. Tahira, his main market rival, will she even run? I wouldn't know. I mean, it sounds like they're not certain, and they're going to see how the ground rise. Will they commit? Nashwa is a decent filly in her own right, but I'm not sure. I just don't think her peak is good enough to beat Paddington. And then I look down through it. Big Rock is a likable horse, but has kind of come up short plenty. Has been beat an awful lot this year in Group 1 company. Chaldean again seems to have been exposed, and was exposed by Paddington in the St. James Palace. So I think, 2.30 or a little bit bigger even is a really fair price about Paddington on all known form, Tom.
Donn?
Yeah, agree with all of that. What Charlie says, it's his rate of progress this year was remarkable. He won a Madrid handicap on his first run off a mark of 97, and now he's a multiple Group 1 winner. You have to allow him his run in the Juddmonte, but I think you can. Like, it was only 3 weeks after his Sussex Stakes win, and the Sussex Stakes was a real grueler. And as well as that, that was his 5th run of the season, I think, the Sussex, and then went on to the Juddmonte, stepping up in trips, 10.5 furlongs. And I know Nashville got the better of him for 2nd place, but he was the one who mounted the challenge to Mostadaf. And Mostadaf, obviously, he's very, very good, and we'll come on to him now a little bit later. But it just wasn't his running, Paddington. I think that's fair enough, and you can easily allow him that because it was his first run back after the Sussex. He'd been busy all season. He'd made that progress, and as Charlie said, Aidan O'Brien has left him off, freshened him up. This has probably been his target since then, to give him that break and bring him back. And like, I know you can probably pick holes in his form in ways, but like he beat his peers in the Guineas, then won the Eclipse, and that to me was a big run. He beat Emily Upjohn in that. He stayed on strongly to beat her by a half length. She'd won the Coronation Cup before that, so she came into the race in really good form, and the pair of them were clear of their couple of rivals. But that was a big run, and then the grit that he showed. I know Inspiral didn't run a race in the Sussex, but that might have been because of him. Like, they engaged in that battle quite a long way out, and he got the better of her, and then still had enough in reserve to see him home. So I just think he's a really tough horse. A mile is probably his trip on testing ground, a stiff mile or a testing mile or a well-run mile. Soft ground is no issue. It's possibly even a positive for him. And yeah, I agree with Charlie and Tahir, like, and Dermot Weld has been saying that he is going to make a decision on whether she's going to run or not. And outside of that, like, you can see why Nashville is running here instead of in the Champion Stakes. They can run Mustard in the Champion Stakes, and on testing ground, you can see why she's running over a mile anyway. And she's a good filly, and she did finish a wee, just a half length in front of Paddington last day. But I think Paddington is better than that, and I think she's going to have to improve again to beat a peak form Paddington. So yeah, I think he's the one that they're all going to have to beat.
Yeah, Adam says Paddington is the bet for me. Viper, totally agree with Charlie on Paddington. He's won twice on soft ground. He's a rock solid bet. Simon, I'm not reading out that joke. It's appalling. Don, what do you think on Tahira? Like, if it's, are we expecting it's going to be heavy ground, particularly on the straight course? Is that looks like it's going to be heavy, right? And if she doesn't run, what do you think about that? Like, do you think she doesn't handle very testing ground?
No, she's probably better on better ground. Like, her best runs have been in the Coronation Stakes and in the Matron Stakes, and that was all on, you know, good fast ground.
What about the Moy-Glare though last year, Don, where she absolutely blitzed Meditate, who won at the Breeders' Cup? Like, that was nigh on heavy, wasn't it? It rained all day.
Yeah, that was soft ground that day, all right, for sure. And yeah, as you say, Meditate came into the race on an upward curve, and Tahira beat her on merit. I think it was only her second run as well, wasn't it? She won her maiden and then went straight to the Moy-Glare, I think. Yeah. No,
I don't think she'll run. It's annoying. I'm going to tip her, but I fear he won't run her. I just think, obviously, I probably don't know as much as Dermot Weld.
What do you think it says then, Tom?
What do you mean?
Well, you're saying, like, what do you think it says if she doesn't run? You know, as in, because on form, I mean, in theory, she does handle soft ground.
Yeah, I just think that he will err on the side of caution, and you know, he likes to go to the Breeders' Cup, that sort of thing. So he won't want to leave anything else behind here for the sake of winning a QE2, where you know, you could realistically go Breeders' Cup and guarantee slightly better ground. Like, I get it, it's erring on the side of caution, but he's like, they've avoided the bulk of the summer, and yet it would be a great shame if she wasn't to run here. It's just frustrating if she doesn't run, I think, because Paddington against Tahira is the two Irish Guineas winners could be. I mean, I think it could be an epic race.
I agree. Like, you love to see it. You want to see it for racing, the two of them taking each other on, and it's been, you know, it could be the clash of the season, but you can see it. If like, this is her biggest test. It's her first run against the Colts as well. She's never taken on the Colts. All her runs have been against fillies. So, and you can understand she's going to have to step up, probably put up a career best to beat Paddington, probably, and on soft ground, if the option is to take on to go to America, and you're going to get fast ground there, obviously, and if it's one or the other, you can understand why, you know, as you say, that they're on the side of caution.
So I'm going to crab Paddington's form. purely because I'm not sure anything of the first maybe 8 in the Guineas or 9 in the Guineas has won since. In fact, no, I think it's worse than that. Indestructible, has that won since? No. So your Silver Knot hasn't. Oh, the 12th, August Rodin. So I think there's enough to crab the Guineas form. I think there's enough to crab the Eclipse run in the sense that Emily Upjohn is definitely better with a hood on, and I can see why they took it off coming back to 10. But for me, that Epsom performance from Emily Upjohn was when she's at her best, 1.5 miles with a hood on, and she came back to 10 and she had the hood off, and she was beaten by probably a better but a quicker horse. And I think she ran below her best that day. Maybe I'm using that to fit my argument, but I think she wants a hood and she wants 1.5 miles. And I don't think the Sussex Stakes form is worth anything. I think it's absolute trash. So I'll side with Tahira, whose Guineas form is far better than that which Paddington can boast. Chased home Morge, who subsequently came out and won a Group 1 over in America and will head back to the Breeders' Cup. I mean, Matilda Picot's not done badly, has she? Subsequently. So she came out and won the Challenge Stakes, a Group 2 at Newmarket. At least there's winners coming out of that. And I thought she's been, very good since. I thought she was good on 2 quicker ground at Ascot. And I suppose she wasn't mega impressive last time, but that was off a little bit of a break and she won pretty comfortably. So I think there's too much between them in the betting. 5.0 Tahira. She probably won't run. Perfect. I'm really looking forward to that race if they both run up more than any. Does anyone want to add anything or not? Running of the race is interesting, I think. What does Paddington do?
Probably race handily. That's ideal. Just get a lead and sit in. Tahira probably be a wee bit further back. She can be a bit further back. She's got that turn of foot. But no, for me, it's the race of the day, the race of the meeting, and one of the races of the season as well. If they both run, it's going to be fascinating to see how because their paths have been quite different in how they've got to here. So it'd be good to see them lining up against each other.
He'll just follow Big Rock, won't he? Surely.
Yeah, you're right. That'll go forward and he'll follow that. And I think Chris Hayes will probably just try and pick Paddington's pocket late on.
Yeah. But
she won't run.
Right.
No, she might. Exactly. Let's hope she does. Exactly that. Right. Moving on to the 345, the Champion Stakes. Horizon Doré is 4.0, 5.0 King of Steel, Bay Bridge 5.5, Mostadaf 8.0, Via Sistina 9.0, bigger prices thereafter. 3 different horses. Charlie, last year's winner, first of all.
Yeah, really a good race and a trappy race, I thought. As in Horizon Door, as you said, comes into this really progressive profile, but definitely the biggest test he's sort of faced. King of Steel has a bit of an in and out profile. I thought was okay behind Hookham, ran all right again in the Irish Champion Stakes, but again, he's yet to really go and take out a big one, for all that he's ran very well in different sort of contests for me. And then you go down through them. Mostadaf I liked, but I just couldn't make my mind up about the ground. He was so good in the Judmont. I just didn't know if the ground would end up blunting his real class. So I just sided with Bay Bridge. I mean, he ran okay at points through the early part of this season, had his confidence booster at Kempton, and then I thought he ran a really honest, likable race in the Arc and just flattened out through the last 150 yards. And I thought back down to this trip, last year's winner, I think he'll be fine on the ground. I mean, he's never really ran on it this testing, but he's bits and pieces of form on slower ground. So I just thought of all of them, he was the really rock solid one in this, Tom. So yeah, Bay Bridge for me. And like I say, I really like his chances in this race.
Donn, you are with Mostadaf.
I am, and only of course, the ground's a big concern, but I think the reaction to the ground has been greater than it should have been. I think he's a bigger price. Look, it's a worry, but I don't think it's as big a worry as his price suggests it is. Like if the ground, and I know big if, but if it was fast ground, he'd probably be favourite, almost certainly be favourite. I mean, he's the outstanding 10 furlong horse, older horse. So And actually, he's run twice on soft ground. He's won twice. He won 2 listed races at Sandown back 2 years ago, and they're the only occasions on which he's run on soft ground. So it's not that he doesn't handle it. It's just that, as Charlie said, he's so good on better ground. Like his Prince of Wales Stakes big win, his Juddmonte win last time, probably a step forward in that again. And he's a 10 furlongs is his trip, much more than 12 furlongs. He's probably a better horse this year at 5 than he was last year. And I just think there's a good chance that his talent will see him through. I think he's the best horse in the race. Official ratings suggest that too. And have him away clear. He goes well at the track. We know that, albeit on better ground when he won the Prince of Wales's. And yeah, he comes into the race in good form. He had his nice break since the Juddmonte. I think he's got everything in his favour bar the ground. And actually, when they moved this race and these races, the round course races, to the inside track in 2019, it ended up good to soft ground. The times say it was good. It was officially soft, but the time suggests it was good to soft. So good to soft ground. If they do move it inside, I think he should be able to operate on that. And I just think he's the reaction of the market is a wee bit greater than it should have been on the ground.
Yeah, that's interesting if they do move it, because it's like you say, it's sort of untouched hurdles ground. And this time last year, albeit we had a different summer, the jumps courses were good to firm, and a lot of the flat courses were heavy / unraceable. So it could be better than we fear, definitely. Isn't it funny to think that Mostadaf ran in the arc because they kept Baid for this race last year, and Baid didn't win, and Mostadaf probably would have done on good to soft. So there you go. I'll chance my Prospero, who was beaten in this race last year. It's purely because he needs headgear. He probably needs a lobotomy, but at least he's got blinkers and a tongue tie for good measure. So they were going to run him at Ayr in a listed race. They declared him in cheek pieces. He was then taken out. They then ran him a week later at Goodwood over the 10 in that listed race. And I mean, he won easy, but only by half a length, because he's such a thinker. Like, he has got bundles of talent. Apparently the lad that rides him at home, tried to persuade them not to put the cheek pieces on. Then I think after last time they've agreed headgear is what he needs, and they've actually gone with blinkers. And he's just worth chancing in headgear because he is so talented. I watched that race again last year, the Champion Stakes, and like he could have, I think, gone to the front, but then backed out of it. And the further away from horses Tom Marquand got, the more ground he made. So he's just, I don't think he likes being around other horses. I think he's just so tricky. So the blinkers have to work. But if they do, he could definitely win this at 13.0, I think. Okay. Simon says it was a weak Champion Stakes last year that Baybridge won. Thanks for all the contributions, everyone. Much appreciated. We get to the 425, the Balmoral Handicap. I'll give you prices when we get there. 4 different horses. Donn, straight back at you, first of all. And actually, I know that Steve Jones agrees with you, even though he isn't here. He does.
That's good news. Good news all around. Awal is the horse. His penultimate run at Goodwood was not a good run in the Golden Mile, but they put cheek pieces on that day, and they took them off last time for Redcar, where he's run well before, and he ran well. He kind of missed the break a little bit, and then had to make ground early on to get into a prominent position, and then just didn't have anything left inside the final furlong or the final 100 yards. So I think back at Ascot, where he's good, he finished 3rd in the Hunt Cup this year on ground that was probably faster than ideal for him. He's a better horse on easier ground. Redcar the last day as well was 7 furlongs. He's better over a mile. And his run in the Lincoln in the early part of this, well, obviously very early in the season, was a really good run. He hit the front. He looked a likely winner, and then he got mugged by Migration, who came down the near side and actually won going away in the end, won impressively in the end. But Awal ran a big race in defeat. He's only £2 higher than he was then. Migration's a player as well, and he came into the race fresh horse as well, and he goes well fresh, but he's £6 higher than he was for the Lincoln. Awal is £2 higher, so it's neither here nor there. But I just think that Awal has done enough in the meantime to suggest that he's got a chance of running a big race here, plus back to Ascot, back on soft ground that suits him well. And yeah, I the fact that he comes into the race in good form, I still think it could be a well handicapped horse. I think his high draw is no negative either. Like, it's funny because in the Balmoral, they can't all go over to the far side. But even if and when they do, it's no harm to be towards the near side of the group, of the far side group. So I don't mind his draw on Sol 22, and yeah, I can see him running well.
I am with Haggis Horse, Latam. Tom Marquand seemingly rides the other one, who we'll come to. Well, he does, seemingly. He does. I guess he's chosen to. He was on board this horse at Goodwood when I thought he looked a bit tricky, and he was definitely disappointing that day. He's run once subsequently where he was held up, and the pace held up pretty well. I think barring Star of Orion, who was the only one who was around him who finished ahead of him. But I remember at Goodwood thinking he just wants a test on testing ground at a stiff straight track. And so and said that day that he could be a Balmoral horse. So I guess I'm sticking with my guns there. And I quite like they're going cheek pieces on him because he looked a bit tricky at Goodwood. And Charlie, you are with Tom Marquand's choice.
Yeah, I've gone with Al Mub here. He's won on soft and heavy. He ran a good race in the Lincoln early on in the year. Ran well in listed company afterwards. Won on heavy ground at Leicester, and then in the race Donn was talking out behind Johan. He got no run when he wasn't beat very far there, and again ran very well at Newbury. Back down to over 7 behind Popmaster, who was then subsequently just touched off in the Challenge Cup at Ascot at the last meeting. So yeah, I think this lad is nailed on. He's drawn just over by Donn as well on he's drawn very high, but again, I don't see that being a problem. William Haggis is also running great at the moment, and yeah, I'm trusting Tom to have made the right call in this. Tom, as in Tom Marquand, not Tom Stanley.
Yeah, exactly. I hope he hasn't. So there you are.
Sounds...
Charlie, you've got another bet for us.
Yeah, Angel's Breath, 408, Market Raisin. He was a really good novice chaser, this horse, back in 2019. Beat First Flow before going on to win a Grade 2 at Ascot. He then had a mammoth layoff, and we didn't see him until spring of 2023. And he ran okay on his second run back at Chepstow, finishing second, beat Granted Far Enough, and dropped a further £5 for that. And Sam Thomas, the interesting thing is Sam Thomas. Sam Thomas has started the winter season proper in great form, had a really good Chepstow last weekend. And this also got enough back class to make him very interesting off 143. And with the fact that he is fragile, I just can't believe that they're not going to have him fully revved up for this. So yeah, Angel's Breath, 408, Market Raisin.
Then we come to Matchbook Zero long shots. I've had a decent couple of weeks with these. So Matchbook Zero, if you haven't checked it out, please do. It's well worth doing. If you want a win-only bet, the market goes live at 10 a.m. each day. And you're most likely to be getting best odds because of the nature of the Matchbook exchange. It's an exchange. And with Matchbook Zero, you don't have any commission to pay and there's no margin either. So check it out from 10 a.m. each day, win-only bets. Mine is Rogue Millennium in the QE2. Even though you've got Tahira and Paddington in there, she's just one of those that could be held up and run on into a place, given how she likes to approach her races on the straight course at Ascot. It suits. So she's about 41.0. Rogue Millennium. Charlie?
Rue Boissonade for me in the Fillion Mares race.
Donn?
Yeah, Awal in the Balmoral. I just think he's an improving horse. He's still relatively unexposed as well. He's only run 10 times, and young horses have a good record in this 3- and 4-year-olds.
Okay, that's in the Balmoral. Moving on to the Best Saturday Lay. Best Saturday Lay for me is Free Wind as a place lay. I think we're all sort of against her in the betting. She's probably not short enough to just lay in the win market, but I think there are 3 horses that could finish ahead of her, as has happened a couple of times in her career this season. And I think she's just gone a bit off the boil. So Free Wind place lay for me. I think there are lots of horses that could finish ahead of her in that contest. Then Best Saturday Bets. Tahira for me. Charlie Poste.
Baybridge in the Champion Stakes for me.
Donn, the judge of Irish racing, is going for
Jackie O in the Fillion Mares.
And you can have a Trixie option there because they're in 3 different races. Tahira, Baybridge, Jackie O. Donn, Charlie, thanks ever so much. Enjoyed that.
All good. Yeah, that was good. Looking forward to it. Lots now.
Lovely job. Cheers, Charlie.
Cheers, Tom. Yeah, just like Don said, really, really looking forward to tomorrow, Saturday.
Yeah, exactly. Let's hope they all stand their ground. We'll be back next week, but first we'll hope you have a fun and profitable weekend. Bye-bye, everyone.